They received the BA from Sarah Lawrence and lived between the US and the UK. With Q Rivera Dundas, Jhani is a co-founding editor of Riverlet, an experimental journal dedicated to the investigation of the interstitial. Am I saying that right? Interstitial. Dorothy Wong, who was the judge of the Poetry Book Prize and a professor and program chair at Williams College, has this to say of Time Regime. Time Regime is an impressively realized work of poetry, with the maturity and assurance that are more typical of the second or third book. And I also want to quote from one of our own Gaudy Boy authors, Jennifer Sang-Yun Park, who is quoted in Jhani's book as the epigraph. And Jennifer has this to say about Time Regime. Composed with the diligence and precision of a cartographer, and sharply meditative and instigative, Time Regime makes you listen to the iteration of Earth that we inhabit, the little Earths within us, and the possibilities of Earth beyond our own corporeality. A kaleidoscopic collection charting how we die many deaths, as quiet and loud and beautiful and painful as a boulder being born through erosion. Jhani will be accompanied in their reading by Thea. Please welcome both of them.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
I'm blinded by this light, but I've seen all of your faces, and I'm humbled and honored to be here and gather with all of you, and to have so many worlds collide in this space. It's a treasure and a dream, and I think this is what making is all for, and it's all about, is gathering us together. Thank you to the KGB bar for hosting us as well. I'm really excited for all of the events that are happening at KGB. So this one is just one in this week. Y'all should check out those. I'm really also, I just wanted to say thank you to Thea and to Jee and to Kim and the Gaudy Boy team and to Jorge for making this such a collaborative and I almost want to say spiritual process. Like it's it's just been such an amazing ride to connect, go through, deconstruct the work together, and recreate something anew. So tonight we're playing, and what you're hearing is we've talked about this, but it hasn't ever been practiced. So this is kind of the first time it's coming together, and it's happening in a spirit of play, and we want to invite you all into that spirit of play with us. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to read 3 poems, and I'm just going to start with this one really wonderful. Wow. In the spirit of play, I'm going to read a poem. Let's invite the sound in.
Amen.
Inside Dadiji's hands. Music for Walter Benjamin, who wrote, "History cannot be sought in the riverbed of a process of development. It is miraculously someday, in geologic time, the scratch of water along an embankment. The air is alive where I am, boundary layers of a wound. My lover drives a vehicle through sudden fog, approaching sea. We are coagulating in the night, accosted by fire. There is the negative pyramid approximated by elm branches, torn away by bovine teeth and sodden with summer rain. A canister of liquid ignition. This is a ritual where something is aided in its diminishing. In one way of looking at it, I stitched a blessing into your finger. seeking to subtleize your ache, make it surge, visible and glowing sharp. Together, we're seeking ruins in our ancestral language to clot around us, the physical bearing of history. There is contrapuntal. I dance inside what I was never meant to inherit, becoming hot, caked in ash and sweat and ice cream. To offer these sounds back to the generations of birds disappeared in toxic fields, sprouting rice. We see our own throats swollen red. Ruins, these materials, the water. I can't imagine the sound. Sometimes I am deliberately working to remain unreachable, recognizing that I will be crossing a bridge until there's no skin left on my feet. Y'all, this is hype. This is so funny. Oh my god. Alright, I also forgot to take this off.
Take it off.
This next poem is about a funeral. So maybe funerals are like this as well, whatever's happening after this. This funeral is not. So I thank you all for allowing both in at the same time. I also want to say about this poem, Vogue. I wrote this poem in conversation with a friend, Azadeh Hamadi, who was writing conversations and poems about her family and distance. Her family's in Iran, and I was writing about the passing of my grandmother and her diasporic passing and passages as well. So this poem, Vogue, is for Azadeh Hamadi. Seeing a woman on the way to see, as if I have watched that scene so many times, even though I have not. 1. When it rains, sounds from the highway carry further through crow-filled firs. 2 miles, ascending. Traffic hits the house through water. I wake in the dark with a ricochet. The sun hasn't risen. I roam to a different room, and I light a candle. Something moves beyond the dark passage of the window. The house-tall holly bush catching scent of a storm, heading east from the Pacific. Sitting on the floor, I turn my computer on, adjust a remainder of delicate pink cloth over my head. The traditional thing. The respectful thing. The thing I feel I need to do for my Dadiji's Zoom Vogue. Her transition into death this morning finally sung and punctuated by awkward camera angles, internet lag, Shor Saeed swishing over the holy book. My brother cousin and my auntie bleating some words, rising from their kneeled spot on a cut of red carpet. 2. My lines, the walk to the sea and back, come from thread suturing their names together across the stars. It comes from the hairs and pores puckering against what prickles like cold, pressed tin cauterizing fingertips. I have a question about how far the pioneer's aura stretches, which is a question about suffusion. Against the intimacies smoked out in the awnings of cheap material construction, against the hill and the film of fog, and the moss-draped vision dome, and the cranes reaching toward mountain ice, against my cells and their clotting. The border city that drove out the Trans-Pacific revolutionaries. Its migrant labor force, with sticks, dipped in flame, and with dogs. Before the migrants, it was the Salish speakers who would not be moved. Does the light stretch? It stretches, her arms tangled in gold and salt. Another clerk's girl descending from the steamship Kilindini Harbor's back spray. I've been undulating since her passing. My breathing shallow, her son's bulk collapsing and ricocheting down the stairs. To depart the traces, the ruins, to insist our intimacies, this presence. 3. I begin to feel sad for reasons that my dead grandmother might not have felt sad about. No women can facilitate Gurdwara service, perform Simran for a group gathered in a sacred place, like this temple on the West London High Street. I wanted to hear the sounds of women carrying my grandmother away on the Sea of Pearls, but she disliked so many women. To be a woman was to win at a game stacked against you already. Your poverty accrued through colonial land divestment. Your tongue's shape around another occupier's language. The deaths of your sisters by your uncle's hands. Or the creeping threat of it, when the refugees would pass in a caravan, winding a cord around the edges of villages. The game ensured that deliverance was sealed, not by your will, but by the gamblings of your brothers. Gossip. Then you left the fabric of your home to stand in a line in a distant cold country. Pluck, pluck, pluck. Not you. In many ways, my grandmother was entangled in this, until she decided to stop leaving her row house in the immigrant zone. 4. The waters and their theories, moving, unstuck from our bodies. I see my great uncle, Dadiji's brother, crying. He and his younger brother are the last living of 10 siblings, now that my grandmother has died. I owe him a call, but I'm scared. I make prashad, butter, atta, peanut flour, toasted almonds, sugar, and water. I have no jaggery, no ghee, no rose water. The wind picks up, and I can still hear automobiles carving through the cascades, a gray light moving across a dome of clouds. 5. Where it's no longer about traces but presence, a theorist drops a pedal. An unquantifiable steam of torque and a shovel, the stickenness of things. The matte sound of rust against wet clay, against subducted agates. There is the arrival of a stranger and their quiet departure, leaving the body behind. I would call this residue the phenomenology of divining, or the squelching dug place not quite long enough for the rabbit corpse to fit comfortably into. Another matte sound, and the hovering above. Where the petal falls, it is a tear chalky with calcium, and the unsettling high frequency that wraps itself around only one ear. Where the presence is, where bodies are, a world of habits that put certain objects within their reach. We could call this history, and we could call this memory, and these histories might surface on the body, or even shape how bodies surface. These reaches of memory might be visited upon our bodies, the woman said, who has trembled in defiance against the heat. 6. Laughing slicks over teeth, saliva gripping against winter's entrance. Dewdrop world is the dewdrop world, the poet writes. And yet. Her name calls me in at dawn, the snow wilting down, the broadleaf trees groaning under the weight. Your story of working to make the place upright in the bitter wind, my heartline forgetting the tearing shrug of holly under earth and waters. The calyx, the shoe, the death I am mourning. Or is it her life I am mourning? Or as V says, the death of someone else crashes into one's mourning for one's own death. I don't know, but I know there is something there, in sitting, infirm, in the beauty of that failure. Outside I make chords out of ice and snowfall, the dew tangled frozen into a net. The chords I take and braid across the yard, from the rabbit's 2-foot deep grave to the front door. A world of suspended water, the ash of an ocean coming ashore. The wind is still. Such a ride to have the ice cream truck like there and slowly depart. I feel very like, whoa. This next piece that I'm going to read is in partnership with Thea. I wonder, Thea, if you want to also say anything about your idea on this piece. You don't have to. No. So I think I'll just start. You feel ready? This is the last piece I will read to you. Screation 2. Recrystallize. In the view that defines us as modern, there are an infinite number of details. To be modern is to live entranced by the savage autonomy of the detail. Suzanne Sontag. Oh, yes! Do we feel this way about that quote? This is also a long one, just so everyone knows. Penciling over the onslaught or blur pattern, I make contact with a shirt of smoke-damp linen, and you drift into cross-stitch. Perforated with meticulous dowel marks, pressures relieved, rather clutching ribbon laterals, when you float into your lock, come back humming. Column and a braid. You see, the translation is more supple than that. The fold is an integer being. Little city walls held in filaments of ice. A triplet of passages. There were poems concerning wars waged in the cloud cover. I am uncertain what could have leapt forth, pointing from their echoes, reversal and aerial. A primary forest copied over and over. Reversal and aerial. Another city. Then the act, preceded by two, sowing a direction, an offering, a gift. Direction capacious, an expression. Then a 4, which lays aside the predisposition. These are the architectures and shapes I haunt as the visions glide into the old growth, reciprocal encounter. whisper. When I pass along a tableau of ivy, gathering particles together, a limit trips frost on pink air. Dream language, sudden, veering, bellows. How can the polis and I be emptied of each other? And I have not braided a friend's hair in years. Unbinding, window, binding. Our hands meet in my pocket. Cords skitter from strands between fingers, and my knees are steadied under her arms, ribbon shelter of her chest. The years between footfalls, over and under. To be as porous as governance of horizontal address. Anemone, there on the tunnel wall, will I shatter? Winter bursting through the minute, air's inverse. A polyp nestled in this sensitized glacier. Your hollows. My ailment is hybrid fractal, the secret way of fire. I do not know my ailment. Wish to gather them into my wall one last time. River and the diversions. To scatter our language. Then, magnet of finality. There are those who cannot stay and who cannot turn back. It is a collision of negatives. Above, the leaves confound. They curl back in a great wave, silver outliers against a slate, small detail. Wrong spirit, I think, logging how a pastoral border is the measure of your contour in the morning. Anything else goes different. Cry synthetic shapeshifters. To be caught in the reverb. To arrive bedraggled and derelict to your milk breath. We eat the same food. Equalize our bacteria. Guts embroidered. Thread. Fold. Loop. Fold. Set. Adorn the intricate structure. It is a conscription of particles. A root is vanished. Dig. Say breathe gap split, blinking disorient and hurdle into sleep. As if you couldn't or wouldn't possibly, but might dare to choose. Your own subjectivity. Rest. You are deserve more than this composite. More than what I limits being to be. Determine January previously warmer than 10 hours ago, or 15, or 53. Give it a swift rattle. Quick current cresting in the gibbous wax last night was hot toward apotheosis. A monstrous arrival out of frame. Leave, say the artists, unlearning. As I stepped away from the stage, out of the building, clotted with weeping, its rafters hid with nettles plastered gold, I was singed by the moon. Wonder, sleepwalk milking the chemical clutch with a throb on a wintry night, long and cloying. Night does not mend the day's brittle light so easily. You believe we are dragged out in the tide. Watch a pearl in a shop window as it recedes from the street, and glitching around our ears, the sounds of shells crushed into cement. Every hour, another song is forgotten. In absence atmosphere, colors become once again elemental, climatic, snips of electricity, fire, or lightning. They root and tether the Borg underlit by the sidewalk. Coming another way into consciousness, then, exists, so clemently, as the flux shows its will to magic. Are we poised to restore? We meet someone by chance in the midnight of a funding deadline to purchase ad space for the revolution. Hello, interaction, splintering the immobile empress. Will I retain the will to run? I get behind the present. Sempiternal, vestal, deliverance, beatified, blandishment, insouciance, jucticate, thresh. Dispatches like this call invisibly, precede the image, word, thresh, thresh. Maybe pursue the poem in another register. Uncertainly, down-trailing these brackets in blue-line piston spit. The lamps, how they burn night-folded materia. Hologram speaks again, as though sleeping, now up-crashing with a temperate charge. A magnetic rush hologram scatologically flaring, she hears pump-pump of radiators unspooling, several floors up. Maybe as a letter. Did you know lilac has not been in New York long enough to form an evolutionary relationship with insects that would in turn be eaten by birds? Lilacs are beautiful, botanist Marielle Anzalone admits, but they're like styrofoam. You find these things in the landscape that look and smell like plants to us, but for animals around them, they don't act like plants. They might as well be statues. The metabolic evolution of flora in New York has stopped in the case of lilac. The landscape is mausoleum. What do you do with this? In collecting and transcribing these collisions, spillages, and dreams, several processes, I'm discovering it on the line. Writing you, papaya slides around some teeth. Wandering in the sad float beside you, I did not want to fear death so much. It is a process of undoing or losing consciousness, a kind of amnesia in the megalith. Disassembled textures, someone else's sudden imaginary. But the temple of undeveloped land on the island north, particularly the Inwood Hill in Fort Tryon Parks, where we live, is legible somehow, precisely because it is overgrown. More wild than death. The Olmsted brothers did not interfere with these northernmost forests straddling the Dykeman fault line. In the sweeping ramble, lovely hopeless. Local names: tulip trees, shad bush, sassafras, and cinnamon, oak and spice bush, cordgrass, bulrushes. Traces of pre-Columbian oyster and clam harvests rendered in clustered piles of bleached shells and husks along the run of the salt marsh, the River Harlem. And after its 1626 purchase from the Wappinger and Muncie Lenape, the surface of the earth was raked, girdled by orchard, farm, country retreat for lord and Strauss, military outpost, orphanage. Holding pen. Ask of the circumstances that harkened such a bitter exchange, a purchase favorable to the mercantilist Dutch West India Company. The land, the narrative, as dead as email. Posies of lilac. Predictable wilting, criminalizing the liminal. There are ancestors strewn about, to seek in the rock, to reconstitute. I cannot map with certainty the ecological histories, the voices. It is mist, vortex, dismissal, membrane, absorption, and ice. Still I ache for your crossing body beyond into animals, a trembling kind of horror, and solidarity. During the Pleistocene epoch, which stretched from approximately 1.8 million years ago through to 8,000 years ago, large ice sheets moved trillions of tons of earth and water. Rocks within glaciers scraped and scratched the bedrock of that celebrity Central Park, producing long linear striations and grooves. Nearby Long Island is composed of rubble that the glacier left behind as it melted. Bottle blank, stalled by windows and roofs that empty the sky. You become a hoarse amplitude in the capital. Alone with an antique affair of solid rain. The rain said, go and return as discourse. You're walking, and now you enter the given, meet quiet. In the translucent cloister, columns bridge firmament, and this plain in one single gust of limestone. Your ankles. A threshold that redoubles. Parma, birthplace of rivers. Harvest trace metals make tip of an island, petroleum and rubber mesh. Hurtle into the murmuring core of the mountain, as incidence bends down. Together we are privately leaning and stumbling a sequence adjacent to ledge, wishing a sign of the train would come to hasten us along. Dull. We privately too prolong getting to it. The chance of an arriving train in the station. A cave system prone to flooding in summers, and viscid with seasons of rest. In a body song, we are partial as chance, so near the swell of longing. Fjord, scattered, coast into copper. Acknowledge this as you run the line, earning a retainer of moments. I halt to listen, to snap a digital image. I do this first, knowing I might not commit myself to become lost, just here, with the icicle in the stairwell. To meander the coils of the organism. Trace what I find where the grid slips. This is a way of listening. Hot in the cardinal center of machine again. A vertical speaks directly, projecting sound. Sleepless in the ailment of your hideouts and palisades. Our names are hoarded, hauled through the tectonic labyrinth, and shuttered in a vanishing place. Our names not, are made penal, hold seance with dust. Consider globally dust, the abandoned, tapering into drops and veiling these boulders, a dewy shale quartz inlaid with braided steel, and cloistered bones of steel, cables 6 or more inches in diameter. Contraction. A unit is called Tuesday, or the 4th day of pay index. Legislate my heritage piece, heeding the symbols of mercantile medicine. 240 hours are as much illusion as the extant. Trace what remains where the grid stops. There will be no recount.